5, 4, 3, 2.
I know you see somehow the world will change for me and be so wonderful. Live life, breathe air. I know somehow we're gonna get there and feel so wonderful. It's all for real. And I'm telling you just how I feel. So wake up the members of my nation. It's your time to be, there's no chance unless you take one. Then it's time to see the brighter side of every situation. Some things are meant to be, so give your best and leave the rest to me. Leave it all to me, leave it all to me. Just leave it all to me. Hello, I'm John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
And my name is Diane Kruger. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning to Current and Relatively Occurring Events News. We are breaking a story right now. Why don't you tell us about it, John?
Breaking news on the story of the trial of the three engineers who are being sued over the events in Ski, Germany 4 years ago.
Thank you for that, John. We are going to be breaking to our correspondent, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Brown, and I'm going to give you guys a recap of the June 2nd, 1998 Ishad derailment train wreck. So it begins with the passengers boarding at 5:45 a.m. for their so terrible traumatic journey they're about to experience. At 10:55 a.m., a part of a wheel breaks off and some of the metal shoots through the floor of the passengers. The passengers in Car A decided to remove themselves, and the father in Car A goes to notify the conductor of the accident. The conductor, so stupidly, decides to not pull the emergency brake to go investigate the situation because that is their protocol. So, as they're walking back through the cabin to get to cabin A, the cabin is swaying around, still not deciding to pull the emergency brake. Right as they get to the accident on the scene, the entire train derails and the accident occurs. After the traumatic derailment, 101 were killed and 88 were seriously injured. At 11:02 a.m., 5 minutes after the derailment, local police were on the scene. So the charges of the engineers have been completely dropped, regardless of how many lives have been taken throughout this entire experience. And instead of jail time, they're actually only paying 10,000 euros, which I think is stupid. Now back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Sarah Brown, for that riveting interview.
We will now be conducting an exclusive interview with our foreign correspondent, Mr. Situation, and he will be interviewing Shadeh Makshadasern. Do you require some medical assistance or?
No, I'm good, I'm great.
Oh, allergy season?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Good morning. Today we have a special interview with an insider who is knowledgeable on the inner workings concerning the train crash. We hope this interview will shed some light on the incident that took place and provide answers to the questions that everyone is asking. First, we have concerns over the protocols used when performing daily inspections. Safety and maintenance are an important factor when managing transportation, especially when your vehicles travel over 120 miles per hour. What did the maintenance look like for your Integrity Express trains? In other words, was maintenance taking place as it should have?
Of course we perform maintenance like we were supposed to. We are equipped with sophisticated metal fatigue inspection tools. However, those tools are hard to use. The engineers instead use basic flashlights to check for fractures. I mean, even somebody as brainless as an engineer can use a flashlight. Nonetheless, some of our engineers did manage to carry out tests with our fancy machines and found on 3 different occasions that one of the wheels was a little shady. We chose to ignore those results from those high-tech and very accurate machines. They're so unreliable.
While on the topic of maintenance and wheel inspections, I want to ask about the wheel type used for your train. The metal fatigue on the wheel played an important role in the incident. We have on record that when Intercity Express 51 was introduced, the wheel type used were safe monoblock wheels. However, the monoblock wheels were soon replaced with duoblock wheels. Duoblock wheels are not typically used for high-speed trains. What were the reasons behind switching the wheel type?
Wear pattern on monoblock wheels was causing vibration throughout the coaches, creating a bumpy ride for our passengers. We had a luxury brand to uphold, so the monoblock wheels were replaced with the duoblock wheels that cushioned the vibrations and created a smooth ride for our passengers. At the end of the day, comfort is much more important than safety.
Moving on, I want to ask about the conduction of the investigation. There were 101 fatalities and 88 critically injured as a result of the crash. Some families of those who were injured did not find that a satisfying conclusion had been reached as the investigation came to a close. Do you have any recommendations on how the investigation could have been better administered?
The families affected by the crash and the general public were completely unsatisfied by the result. DB couldn't be taken to court because companies can't be tried in Germany, and the engineers were made to pay a fine of only $19,000. But, if you ask me, the investigation and the court case went great. I'll take sniving off responsibility, a slap on the wrist, and a fine over jail time any day.
Based on your response, I'm going to ask a quick follow-up question. Do you think that the 30 Deutsche Marks was adequate payment for the grieving families for the death of those 101 people? Some quick context for our American viewers. The payment sent to families is only roughly about $18,000 to cover for their expenses.
Of course, when conducting business in Germany, companies rarely worry about repercussions from a legal standpoint. I would go as far as to say those greedy little families are simply trying to get more money from an honest company that did nothing wrong. Anyway, they should be thankful for what little they got. I know the standard is more than 4 times that in other European countries, but come on, I have a mortgage on my mansion to pay for, you know?
Another question I want to ask you is that some people are arguing that the whole incident may have been avoided completely if a more robust emergency stop procedure were in place during the time of the crash. How did the investigation impact the response time for emergency stops?
The accident could have been stopped sooner if the operating policy was to immediately stop the train upon emergency. The accident illustrates that regardless of company policy, the conductor should still be considering the safety over the policy of the train. If you ask me, it's the conductor's fault, not DB's.
My last question for you concerns responsibility over the incident. You have many years of experience in this field, yet there seems to be quite a number of shortcuts taken by the Deutsche Bahn. Are they responsible for this disaster? It seems like a lot of people are pointing fingers at each other, but no one is taking the sole responsibility for the incident that took place.
What? Of course they didn't. They did everything they could to ensure safety standards were met. Well within reason, if you know what I'm saying. Sure, they were told in advance by a trolley company that the tires were super sketchy and that they needed to be changed regularly. But they are expensive just to replace all the time. There's no room in the budget for that. And sure, DB was informed about cracks forming on the inside of the wheel. But let's be honest, have you ever seen a crack that wasn't on the surface? Isn't that the definition of a crack? And guess what? The court cases were dropped. You know what that means? DB is completely innocent. And what they did was right and ethical. About a year before the accident occurred, we were told by a tram company that the dual-block wheels could be potentially hazardous if not changed out regularly. But we chose not to listen because that would be way too expensive. And besides, it was a tram company of all things. I'm not going to take orders from a toy company.
I hope these answers have shed some light onto the incident, but I'm afraid that we are out of time for our interview portion of the newscast. Just as a reminder, thank you for your patience and stay safe.
Thank you for that, Mr. Situation. We are going to introduce our next person, Mr. Dazzy Dukes. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I will, John. Mr. Dazzy is actually our in-house expert on everything ever. He is pretty much the smartest person that we know, isn't that right, John?
Yeah.
Actually, he is proven to be 400 times smarter than someone at this table whose name rhymes with Schmann, Schmicka, Schmiegel, Schmeimer, Schmidt.
Your name doesn't rhyme with that. Back to you, Dozzy Dukes.
Hello and thank you for having me. So what you have here is a classic case of use fatigue. So these train wheels are running at 500,000 revolutions per day. It's a lot. So you end up with these stresses that fluctuate a lot over time, but they're there constantly. And so you end up with a perfect scenario for microcracks to both form and propagate. So if there are any cracks formed either at the beginning or just over use, for a lot of reasons, what will happen eventually is as the metal deforms through constant use, you'll see that on a train, it deforms in such a way that these cracks get exacerbated, and it's no longer able to deform after a while, and so that just makes it rigid, and it keeps contributing to these cracks. And so over time, these small cracks through differential motion at different parts of the wheel will grow and propagate to other areas and weaken the wheel overall. So what this can do is ultimately it'll make the wheel more prone to failure. It'll have less structural integrity and won't be able to take as much of a load, which is very important if you're dealing with consistent loads, like with a train, over the course of years. And it's very dangerous. What you see here is uninspected microcracks. Still very dangerous, because over time, the microcracks can form these fissures that just ruin the metal. It's not usable anymore. And you don't want that in wheels you're trying to defend on in order to keep your trains running. So, back to y'all.
Thank you for starting off your morning with us here at Carly OE News. I am Diane Sawyer, signing off. I mean, what? This is ridiculous. I can't work like this. Who even is Sarah? I mean, come on, this is a mess.
I'm Sarah.
Hey kids, it's me, Shady McShooterson, and I'm here with my sidekick Sketchy. And I know what you're thinking, how do you get his mustache to grow in so nicely? But that's not what today's message is about. I just wanted to pop back in and say that in all seriousness, an engineer's job is very important. As we learned in our material science class this semester, material failure is common and it comes in all different shapes and sizes. Take fatigue, for instance. It occurs in almost any material subjected to fluctuating stress over time, and it can quickly go from being no big deal to a huge deal, like in the German train crash. As chemical engineers, we get to work in almost every industry and do all kinds of cool things, like oversee oil refineries or even design a chemical plant that manufactures mustache grow oil. But by far the most important thing we do is ensure the safety in our communities. If we have taught you anything today, I hope it is to take your job seriously, never cut corners, and never be too proud to ask for help. After all, our jobs affect much more than just how nice our Hawaiian shirts are.